Yo, what up? What up? What up? We are back. We are live. This is Jeremy Sports Network, man. I'm finna do a breakdown segment of the NCAA tournament and the men's bracket. Now, one of the things that with this tournament that is very surprising to me is the simple fact that the stars that are in this particular tournament, and now when I say stars, I'm not necessarily talking about the next superstar in the NBA because I don't see it yet with the eye test. Yeah, we have Lonzo Ball and players of that nature, but I believe there's still more work to be done. Now, when we talk about Lonzo Ball in UCLA, a lot of pressure has been put on Lonzo Ball, and not only has it come from just him playing the game within itself, but it comes a lot from his father. I think his father, to me personally, is putting a lot of pressure on his guys. And when I say his guys, I mean his sons, like in particular. And to me, it's crazy in a way, but at the same time, like a lot of people say, oh well, it has nothing to do with anything in regards to them playing on the basketball court. Well, I'm like, well, if that's the case, then why is the father asking for $1 billion in endorsements ahead of time for his kids? I mean, how can you ask for $1 billion and you ain't even stepped foot in the NBA? You're already saying that they're better than Stephen Curry. Like, are you serious? Like, there's a lot of work to be done. Stephen Curry showed us what he could do while playing in the tournament at Davidson. We seen him go on a magnificent run. So with Lonzo Ball, can Lonzo Ball go on a magnificent run with UCLA? Me, I don't know. I'm not so sure. I mean, this last game in the Pac-12 tournament, he goes 2 for 6. Um, he just really had a bad, awful game. On top of that, not only did he have a bad game, his teammates had a bad game as well. But it seemed like Lonzo Ball ran away from a big moment. A lot of people want to downplay the Pac-12 tournament conference tournament and say, well, it doesn't mean anything. It's really for it's really for the people who wants to be the Cinderellas and make it into the tournament. Well, say that to Duke. Duke won 4 games in a row, 4 nights straight. They knocked off North Carolina, and at the same time, they put themselves in position to win. Although they grabbed a second seed by the NCAA, this is still a great moment for teams who win and play hard in the conference championship because it helps build momentum. Will that momentum carry over? We don't know. We'll see from Michigan if they momentum carry over from them playing in the tournament. So it's a lot of different things that can happen and take place within this tournament, which is to me, I believe this is a great year. A lot of people will really, if you're doing your bracket right, you will really have to understand, okay, what is my focus this year when I do my bracket? Because me, I look at a certain thing like guard play, uh, how they look towards the second half of the season. I don't really too much care with the NCAA men's basketball in the first half of the season. I care about that second half of the season, going up into conference titles, going into the conference championship games, playing in those conference tournaments. And then it gives me a better perspective on what that team is going to look like towards the end of the season, going into the March Madness tournament. Now, while we're talking about that, I mean, I need some people to really help me understand why is it that Duke is not getting the love and credit that they deserve. I mean, yes, they lost 8 games this year. Yes, Grayson Allen has been I don't even know what you want to call Grayson Allen and the things that he's done so far this year. I really don't want to know. I really don't know what to say in regards to that, all the kicking and, attitude stuff or whatever the case may be when it came down to Grayson Allen. But I just want to know, what is it about this Duke team that is not getting the necessary credit that they need? And to me, I believe Duke is a great team. I mean, I'm looking at Duke play this year, and I'm looking at them play in the tournament, the conference tournament, and I'm like, wow, like Duke is really good. Go back and just look at those 2 games against North Carolina in the regular season. The first one they won, the second one they lost, and they was able to get North Carolina again in conference play. But a lot of people want to say, oh, well, North Carolina really wasn't worried about Duke. That's BS. We all know that's BS. Me personally, I believe that is BS. But at the same time, who am I? You know what I mean? I'm just a regular guy. I mean, if you ask me, I enjoy watching this towards the March Madness perspective. Once towards the end of the regular season, once that conference tournament hits, then the NCAA tournament, that's what I'm primarily looking towards. Because now it separates the boys from the girls. And I'm sorry if I'm calling some of those guys out there girls, but at the same time, it separates them, the men from the boys. Then how about that? It separates the men from the boys. And Lonzo Ball, hey, this is going to be a defining moment. This NCAA tournament is a defining moment for you because you did not have a great showing in the Pac-12. It was the Pac-12, okay? You should have won the Pac-12. You're Lonzo Ball, UCLA, you're getting all this praise. You could have at least won the Pac-12. But you didn't. And the way that you all lost and you did not win the Pac-12, hey, that leads me to ask questions. And the questions that I have to ask are questions like, will Lonzo Ball be able to show up in this tournament? Will these guys be able to do the necessary things they need to do in order to win? I mean, those are the things that plague me as an individual as I go through my bracket. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to screen share myself picking my picks. I've already did the first round so far. So the first round I've already taken care of due to the simple fact of, I mean, I'm going to go through and tell you why I chose each particular team and the reason why I chose them to win and advance in this tournament. But I went on ahead and started a little bit, and I wanted to pick up right there where I left off, just because I want you guys to be able to see that after this week, or once the tournament starts, after the first few games, brackets are going to be busted. Okay? Let's just go ahead and be real. I don't see a 16 seed upsetting a number 1 seed, but I do believe there's some mid-majors who have great guard play, and I'm gonna tell you who those teams are once we get into the tournament bracket and I share my page. But there's some mid-major teams who have some great guard play that a lot of people are not talking about. But I do see them guys winning a ball game or two, putting themselves in position to make either the Elite Eight or the Final Four. You never know. Mid-majors have been very surprising in the past few years, I would say 10 years, in the NCAA tournament, because mid-majors, a lot of people are not giving them the credit that they deserve in the players. But I mean, when you have teams like Butler and those guys, hey, mid-majors can possibly be the reason why a lot of these brackets be busted and disgusted. Really, people are going to be mad. People have money on this. People have bets on this. They have drinks on this. One of my friends actually hit me up and they wanted me to help them with their bracket. So this is one reason why I'm doing this show, is because I want to help you guys choose the best team possible in order for you to not have a busted bracket. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to screen share my screen right here. Let's screen share. and we're going to go to the tournament challenge. Okay, so here on the tournament challenge, this is what I have so far. I got Gonzaga advance. Well, let's go ahead and start in the East bracket with the number 1 overall seed and Villanova. Now, Villanova is the number 1 overall seed, and I already have them. I don't see any of those 16 ranked teams beating a number 1. I don't see it happening. Don't think it's going to happen. Not this year. Sorry. But I have Villanova advancing against Wisconsin. Right? And I picked Wisconsin to beat Virginia Tech. Only reason why I say that, if we let's just break this down and go through Wisconsin season and Virginia Tech season. With Wisconsin, they're 25-9. Virginia Tech is 22-10. Their RPI rank is 32. Virginia Tech is 47. Now, this is what I'm looking at. Per game. That means which team plays defense. Wisconsin plays defense. They're only giving up 61 points a game. Virginia Tech is giving up 74 points a game, almost around that 75-point mark a game. So I'm giving an edge defensively to Wisconsin, playing better defense against Virginia Tech. Now, is that going to help Wisconsin win this ball game? Well, we don't know. Let's see. As far as the competition-wise, does that 61% look really good? That's 61 opponent points per game. Let's see how good that really looks. So against top 25 opponents, they're 3-4 against top 25 opponents right here. But their BPI rank is a 21 versus Virginia Tech's 50. In the conference, they're 12-6, which they're 50% in their conference. And Virginia Tech is 10-8. Virginia Tech has lost a lot more conference games. Well, 2 more conference games than Wisconsin. I ain't gonna say a lot, just 2 more. But at this point, 2 can be too many. Points per game, Wisconsin is 71.9 points per game versus Virginia Tech 79.3 points per game. The last 12 games, they both were 7-5. That is why they're 8 and 9 seed. But points per game, Virginia Tech scores almost 80 points a game. Wisconsin is barely hitting over 70, but they play great defense. And the reason why I give the edge to Wisconsin is because they play great defense. And they hold teams to 61 points per game. And I think that is going to be the deciding factor in this particular game in order to help them advance against and play a team like Villanova. So I'm picking Wisconsin over Virginia Tech. So we're going to move on to the next matchup where we have Virginia versus UNC Wilmington. Let's just go ahead and be honest. That 5-12 mark, I really don't put too much emphasis on that 5-12 because I have the 5th seed always advancing, I believe, in my brackets. Because I believe that 5th seed is just a whole lot better than that 12th seed, not because of 5-12, but because of the teams that are in that 12th seed. Now, if it was maybe like a Butler that was there, perhaps, who I know that can cause an upset, then yes, I will put them there. But right now I have Virginia advancing, and they're going up against Florida. And then I have SMU meeting Baylor. And then this was interesting to me. My South Carolina Marquette pick, I had Marquette beating South Carolina, going up against Duke. And reason why I have Marquette beating South Carolina, upsetting them, is because I think Marquette possesses something that really South Carolina does not possess. Although South Carolina plays better defense and doesn't give up that many points, but they don't score that many points. That's the thing. South Carolina does not score that many points. They barely score over 73 points a game, where you have Marquette is a team who averages over 82 points a game. That is why I'm giving them the edge in this matchup, is because I feel as though they know how to score the basketball. And if need be, hey, I believe they could get some stops against South Carolina. I really do believe that. I really do believe that. Even though against top 25 opponents, they're 1-4 against top 25 opponents. But hey, South Carolina's only 2-2. They're only 2-2. And to me, I put both of these teams as pretty much even though South Carolina is 22-10 and Marquette is 19-12. I still have both of these teams pretty much even. But the reason why I'm giving the edge to Marquette is because they can score. They really can score the basketball, and that's one of the deciding factors that I believe is going to play in this tournament. Is, can you get shots up and get shots and put your team in position in order to win? And I believe Marquette can do that because they do have great guards who can score the basketball. That's one reason why Marquette scores a lot of points, because of their guard play. And if we go to the next game, Duke versus Troy, I have Duke basically pretty much winning that game against Troy. Now we're going to go ahead and go to the Midwest. And I want to go ahead and go over, the teams and why I advanced them before I start making picks, advancing teams into the Elite Eight, the Elite Eight and the Final Four. Because right now we're in the round of 32. So I picked Kansas. Like I said, I picked all the number one seeds against Miami. I have Miami beating Michigan State. And a lot of people say, well, wow, why is it that you have Miami beating Michigan State? Well, the thing is, with Miami played in one of the perhaps the toughest division in NCAA men's basketball right now, and that is the ACC. They went 21-11 in the ACC, and they have some great quality wins. Okay, they have some great quality wins. Although they're 3-8 versus top 25, but they have 3 really good quality wins. Michigan State has 3 really good quality wins, but at the same time, let's break it down to what really is going to play a factor. Hey, both of these teams are even. Opponents' points per game. Miami play a little bit better defense than Michigan State. And I mean like a 5 to 6 point spread as far as points given up defensively. Both of them finished the same in their conference, which I really don't care about that in regards of picking a winner out of this team. But the last 12 games, they both finished 7-12. But at the same time, hey, Miami's been tested. Miami's been tested, and they've been tested against teams like North Carolina. They've been tested against teams like Duke, which they've beat Duke before. So, hey, I have Miami as the more tested team, and I give them the advancement over Michigan State. And I put Miami in a position to go against that number one seed in Kansas. But hey, that's just how that's just my gut feeling. One thing about when you choose your particular bracket, you have to go, what is your own gut feeling in regards to this? Is your gut feeling. But what I'm going to do here is help break down reasons why I chose this particular team, and I hope you do the same. I don't want you to just start picking. Have a reason on why you made that particular pick, and see if that's the reason why that team won that actual game. It makes it more interesting for you to focus in on the game because you made a pick based upon a certain idea, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and keep going through this. Iowa State, Nevada. Like I said earlier, in the East region, I had the 5th seed beating the 12th seed this year, because there are going to be some people, now don't get me wrong, who are going to have the 12th seed upsetting a 5. That seeding right there is where a lot of brackets get busted. But at the same time, I have Iowa State beating Nevada because I believe Iowa State is just a better team than Nevada is. And I have Iowa State going against Purdue. And I have Purdue beating Vermont because Purdue, let's face it, Purdue really showed us a lot this year. And Purdue is really a great team. They're deep. They have a great bench, and these guys can play defense. And that's one of the things you're going to need when you get in this tournament, when the court shrinks and you have to play basketball, matchup basketball. Purdue matches up really well against a whole lot of teams, as far as from their bigs going down to their guards. Purdue really possess a lot of problems for a lot of people. Now, this 4th seed that they do have, I believe they should have been a 3, but at the same time, Purdue versus Iowa State, I have right there. Creighton versus URI. Now, Creighton, I got them winning and going up against Oregon. I mean, that's pretty much what everybody might have in regards to that 6, 11, 3, and 14. You're going to have that 6 meeting that 3. And then you have Michigan, Ohio, Oklahoma State. And a lot of people are questioning my pick on Oklahoma State, versus Michigan. The reason why I made this pick, I'm going to stop sharing for a second and go back to my actual Hangout page. But the reason why I chose Oklahoma State to beat Michigan is because you have to have an upset, right? You can't be uniform across the whole thing and not expect something to happen. Like, what if you actually chose this upset right here? How does that make you feel? You know, like you want to have some type of excitement, right? Right? I mean, that's me. Like, I want to have some type of excitement. And what's exciting for me is the simple fact that, like, hey, I know now that Oklahoma State versus Michigan is one of the games I'm going to have really circled on this calendar when these two go at it, because I have an upset. And me, I love picking upsets. And I believe Oklahoma State will upset Michigan. The reason why I say that, earlier when we was talking, I was telling you guys, hey, Michigan right now is riding on a high. Just like Duke is riding on a high, Michigan is riding on a high. But you have to favor Duke more so on their high because they've been there before. They've won championships. They have a championship players on that roster versus Michigan, who have no championship players on their roster, but they had a nice little run in the conference title towards the end of the regular season. So you have to give that high to Duke. But Michigan right now, with a couple of days off and you're getting ready to play in this tournament, I just believe Oklahoma State possesses a better chance in order to win. And the reason why I say that is because, okay, Oklahoma State is 20-12, right? Michigan is 24-11. But Oklahoma State is 20-12. The RPI rank is 39. The opponent's points per game is 78. Now, they give up almost 80 points a game, right? But they average almost 85 points a game. So that means they can score, but they don't really play defense, but they can score. So that means this game against Michigan is going to be a high-scoring game. But what's going to separate them, even though Michigan has 4 wins against top 25 teams, what's going to separate them, in my opinion, this is just me, in my opinion, is free throws. Free throws is what's going to be the chosen factor in this game against Michigan and Oklahoma State. The number 7 seed have won 60.9% of the meetings with the number 10 seed, but the number 10 seeds have won 11 of 16 matchups since 2013, people. That's a 68.8% chance that I have for my upset to happen. And I'd rather have a 70% chance since 2013, since for the past 4 years. I'd rather have this 70% chance than having an overall 60% chance of the number 7 seed beating a 10. And right now, I believe Oklahoma State is going to edge out Michigan and send Michigan home when these two go at it, which is going to be a good game. I mean, it's going to be a really good game because I have that upset. So I have Oklahoma State going up against Louisville. So now let's go down and I'll go ahead and screen share again for you guys so you'll be able to see my bracket in entirety. We're going to go to the West, where you had the number 1 seed in Gonzaga. I have them advancing against South Dakota State. I have Northwestern beating Vandy. And the reason why I have Northwestern beating Vandy, if we go ahead and go into detail on this matchup, Northwestern to me, even though they have one win against a top 25 team, guess what? Vandy's not a top 25 team. They're not. So why should I even worry about their record against top 25 against Vandy? This is what I'm worried about. Last 12 games, Northwestern is 5-7. They both average the same amount of points per game. But the edge defensively, you kind of have to give it to Northwestern. And reason why I say that, because they only give up 65 points a game. Barely giving up 65 points a game. So does Vandy have better guard play? I mean, I'm not sure. I didn't watch a lot of Vandy this year, but I know they beat Florida 3 times. I see right here. They lost to Butler by 10. They lost twice to Kentucky. They lost to Dayton. They beat Iowa State by 6, and they lost to Minnesota. But for Northwestern, they lost to Notre Dame. They lost to Purdue twice, which, like I said, Purdue is a good team that possesses a lot of matchup problems for a lot of people. So you can understand why they took 2 losses to Purdue. I believe they should have been 1-1 with Purdue, but they split with Maryland. They beat Dayton. They split with Wisconsin. Michigan, they beat Michigan. They beat Michigan. And I believe that was in a tournament game, if I'm not mistaken. So you upset Michigan, right? And I have Oklahoma State beating Michigan. And I have Northwestern, the team who knocked off Michigan, beating Vandy. This is just my bracket here. You know, y'all can choose y'all brackets the way that you want to choose them. I'm just going down, giving you a bracket breakdown of Jeremy Sports Network's bracket. But I have Northwestern advancing and beating Vandy. And Northwestern is a higher seed than Vandy at this point. But, you know, let's keep it going. So you have Notre Dame versus Princeton. I have Notre Dame advancing. I believe Notre Dame is a much better team than Princeton. And I have them going up against Virginia. That 4-13, everybody already know. I'm going to give that edge to the 4th seed more so than a 13th seed. I really don't see any 13s kind of making any kind of leeway in regards to stirring up people brackets, because right now, when you choosing who you want to win in these certain amount of games, it's basically pick your poison when you have teams like Maryland, FSU, like me. I have Maryland beating Xavier, and I have Florida State advancing as well. I love Florida State. They play in the ACC. They've played. I watched them play a few games this year, and I've actually been following Dwayne Bacon. Dwayne Bacon since he was a kid in high school. And I believe he's growing tremendously. And I love the camaraderie that Florida State possesses and what they play with. That's why I have them advancing against Maryland. Now you got Virginia Commonwealth versus St. Mary's. A lot of people say, well, that's 7-10. Well, VCU to me, I've seen VCU play, and they're like hit and miss, right? They're like hit and miss when you watch these two teams play, but at the same time, VCU is really not that bad. They only got 8 losses. They play defense. They can score the basketball. I mean, they're 14-4 in their conference. They had the opportunity to go up against a top 25 opponent once, and they lost that game. But they're a better team than St. Mary's. St. Mary's went up against 3 top 25 opponents, and they lost all 3 times. They play great defense at St. Mary's because they are 28-4. I do predicate that to their great defense. And a lot of people say, well, why aren't you choosing St. Mary's when they play better defense and they have a better conference record than VCU? Well, you have to look at it, you guys. Look at the strength of schedule, okay? Look at the BPI rank. Look at the RPI rank, right? Those things matter. They both finished 10-2. Like I said, both of these teams are hit and miss. But you had St. Mary's lose against Gonzaga 3 times straight, okay? 3 times straight. And so you're like, well, you would think that they'll be a good team. No. You lose to Gonzaga 3 times straight, that means you can lose to Gonzaga 4 times straight, and you can lose to a top 25 team again because you don't know what it feels like to win against a top 25 opponent. So right now, I give the edge to VCU because I believe VCU is a much better team than St. Mary's all around. I believe St. Mary's had a very weak schedule. You really didn't play anybody. And then when you did have the opportunity to play Gonzaga, who was somebody who is a number 1 seed, you lose to them 3 times straight. So, no, I don't have you advancing at all. Now, we go to the Arizona versus North Dakota. Everybody already know Arizona is going to advance. I don't see a 15 seed in North Dakota upsetting Arizona at all, period. Now we're going to move over to the South region where I have North Carolina going against Arkansas because Arkansas to me is going to beat Seton Hall. I have Minnesota taking on Butler. I believe, like I said, that 4-13. I'm going to give the edge to the 4. I believe the 4 seed is a better team right now. And then you have Cincinnati versus UCLA. We was talking about Lonzo Ball earlier. I believe Kent State is going to be an easy matchup to get UCLA going. But you're going to run into now some tough opponents in like a Cincinnati who's going to cause some matchup issues for UCLA. But I think UCLA will be able to push through, definitely against Kent State. Then you have Dayton taking on Wichita State. And I have Dayton advancing. And you have Kentucky versus North Kentucky. We all know Kentucky is going to advance right there, right? Right. So let's go ahead and before I start making my picks and advancing, because we're going to go ahead, I'm just going to advance, these teams to Let's see. Right now we're in the round of 32. I'll go to the Elite Eight. I'm going to do advancements to the Elite Eight, and I'm going to give my reasons on why they're in the Elite Eight. Then we're going to go to the Final Four, and then we're going to go to the championship game, and then that will be it. So let's go ahead and go directly to the Elite Eight. This is going to be interesting because now people are going to be like, well, who are you going to choose when the tough gets going, when the really good matchups are involved in the Elite Eight? That is the crazy thing. But like I told you guys, I have y'all, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to pick some of the most bizarre picks at the same time. But you have to think busters is going to occur and happen. So you can't always choose your favorite team, right? Right. So I have Villanova beating Wisconsin. I have Florida beating Virginia. I have SMU upsetting Baylor. And people are like, wow, SMU upsetting Baylor? Yes, I have that. I have Duke advancing against Marquette. I believe Duke is just a better team. And we're going to go down to the West. I have Gonzaga beating Northwestern. I have Notre Dame defeating West Virginia. I have Florida State beating Maryland. And I have Arizona beating VCU. Now, I don't have to go into detail on why Arizona is going to beat VCU, why Florida State is going to beat Maryland, why Notre Dame is going to beat West Virginia. Honestly, at the end of the day, with those picks that I'm doing right now to take these teams into the Sweet 16, is because I feel as though this team possesses something to put them on a whole nother level than the teams they're playing against right now. So if you could give me 1 second. Before I get back to you guys. So I'm back. Had to take a little break, but I'm back. And so we were going into the Elite Eight with our picks, right? So going into the Elite Eight with our picks, we're going to screen share again. And going into the Elite Eight with our picks so far, we're going to go down to the South region. I have North Carolina advancing against Arkansas. I have Butler. This is funny because me and my guys on on our show, Fresh Perspective, which you should be looking out for, we were talking about this Butler team taking on Duke, and does Duke get the credit that they deserve for beating up on teams like Butler, like those mid-major opponents, right? But it's funny because one of my guys, he's a North Carolina fan, and how bizarre would it be for North Carolina to take on Butler and play them for a chance to go into the Elite Eight? Like I think it'd be crazy because if North Carolina loses to Butler after he just dogged the crap out of Duke for playing teams like Butler and all of that, like it is going to be funny to me. But at the same time, that's something that he chose to kind of pretty much put out there, right? Right. So UCLA, Cincinnati. You have UCLA and Cincinnati. I have UCLA beating Cincinnati, right? Advancing. Then you have Kentucky versus Dayton. I believe Kentucky is a really good team. I believe they're going to beat Dayton, and they're going to go up against UCLA. Now, this is where the tough gets going, right? Kansas versus Miami. I got Kansas advancing against Miami. Iowa State versus Purdue. Let's talk about that matchup with Iowa State versus Purdue. Reason why I say that is because I want you guys, when I talk about matchups, this is what I'm talking about. And reason why I say you need to look and check every statistical stat that you can when you have teams that's a 4 and a 5 going against each other. RPI rank 20 for Purdue, 22 for Iowa State. Opponents' points per game, this is going to mean something. Purdue giving up 67 versus Iowa State 72. Their record versus top 25, Iowa State 3-6 versus Purdue's 1-5. BPI rank 11-23. Conference, Purdue's 14-4. Iowa State is 12-6. Points per game, they both average about 80 to 81 points per game. They last 12 games, they both have been balling out. We're going 9-3. So this right here is one of those tough decisions. Do you go with your gut, or do you go with the statistical facts that are put in front of you, basically saying that Purdue is a slight edge over Iowa State? And me, I give that slight edge to a Purdue team because I feel as though Purdue, even though they don't have wins against top 25 opponents, like I said, this is a game about matchups in this particular tournament. And I believe they possess a better matchup. One of my friends texted me, my boy Brett. They possess a better matchup in this game against Iowa State. So now you have Creighton versus Oregon. I have Oregon advancing, and they will be taking on Louisville. No, I don't have Oklahoma State upsetting Louisville. Not going to happen. Don't see that game happening. I believe they will have a very much high after that win against Michigan, advancing, but reality will set in against Louisville, and they will lose to Louisville. So now it is set up for the Elite Eight, well, the Sweet 16. And in the Sweet 16, I have Villanova versus Florida, Kansas versus Purdue, Oregon versus Louisville, SMU taking on Duke, Gonzaga versus Notre Dame, Florida State versus Arizona, UCLA versus Kentucky, and North Carolina taking on Butler. Now, I believe this is almost right, right? Y'all can kind of agree with me that you kind of feel as though, like, hey, he's making some really pretty good picks. He's giving us some understanding on why he chose these particular teams. So let's go ahead and advance these teams into the Elite Eight, right? You have number one overall seed in Villanova taking on Florida. I'm going to advance Villanova. You have Duke taking on SMU. I'm going to advance Duke. You have Kansas taking on Purdue. You know what? I'm not even going to go that way because I wasn't going that way when I was choosing, right? I'm going to keep going down first. Gonzaga taking on Notre Dame. This one right here, to me, I have Gonzaga winning, but barely winning against Notre Dame, though. I believe Notre Dame is going to put up a great fight against Gonzaga, but I believe Gonzaga is going to edge them out and win this ball game. And I do have them taking on Arizona. I believe Florida State does not have the all-around complete team like Arizona. Arizona doesn't have those big-time stars on this particular squad that they have right now, but Arizona is more of a complete team than Florida State is right now in this tournament. So now we're going to go to Kentucky versus UCLA. I have with Lonzo Ball. I mean, I'm going to give him the hype, right? I'm going to give him a little bit of the hype because they are putting it on him that, hey, Lonzo Ball is the man. He's the guy. Lonzo Ball can get the job done. Lonzo Ball can make things happen, right? So if that's the case, I'm going to give UCLA an advancement against Kentucky. This is big, right? Because Lonzo Ball is the reason why I'm making this pick. His father is the reason why I'm making this pick because they say the pressure. I'm going to put that I'm going to help add to the pressure on Lonzo Ball, okay? I'm going to help add to that pressure. So I'm going to go ahead and advance UCLA over Kentucky, right? You know what? I can't do it. I'm not even going to do it. Reason why I say that? I just want to look at the numbers. I'm looking at the numbers. You know what? I'm going to do it. And the reason why I said that is because UCLA, even though they can be very streaky at times, I believe the lights are really going to be on against Kentucky. I believe they're really going to be on against Kentucky. And this is the opportunity right now for Lonzo Ball to make and state his claim as being the potential number one overall pick. Seriously. So I have them advancing against Kentucky. North Carolina versus Butler. Now, should I be the type of person to choose Butler to beat North Carolina? No, I'm not going to be that guy. I'm not going to do that to myself. I have North Carolina advancing, playing against UCLA, right? And so we're going to finish out the top with Kansas versus Purdue, right? I have Kansas advancing against Purdue and Oregon versus Louisville. This is going to be a good game with these two. So let's break down Oregon and Louisville, right? They RPI ranked. They both are very strong in the RPI, and they're both are very strong defensively. So this is a pretty even matchup with these two guys, Oregon and Louisville, defensively. Now, who has the edge in scoring the basketball? Well, they both are pretty much the same, with Louisville scoring an average of 77 78 points a game, and Oregon around 79. But in the last 12 games, Oregon's been peaking, ladies and gentlemen. Oregon's been peaking on a higher level, going 10-2 versus Louisville, who's been 8-4. So if you look at conference play, Oregon's been winning. They've been winning. They've been winning ball games, and they're 2-3 versus top 25 versus Louisville's 4-7. Louisville had 7 opportunities against top 25 opponents. Well, I say 11, right? They had 11 opportunities against top 25 opponents versus Oregon 6, but Oregon finished 2-3, while Louisville finished 4-7. But I kind of got to get an edge to Oregon in an upset, right, of beating Louisville, taking on Kansas. This is going to be good, though. This is really going to be good. So now you have it all set up. You got North Carolina taking on UCLA. You have Gonzaga taking on Arizona. You have Duke taking on Villanova. And you have Oregon taking on Kansas. This is going to be good. This is really going to be good. A lot of people can't sit here and tell me that my Elite Eight is not a really good Elite Eight. I got the Zags, North Carolina, both number 1 seeds advancing in those 2 guys. I have Kansas advancing, Villanova advancing, right? So I have all 4 number 1 seeds making it to the Elite Eight, right? I have all 4 number 1 seeds making it to the Elite Eight, right? And so now, with all 4 seeds making it to the Elite Eight, these number 1 seeds making it to the Elite Eight, who is going to lose, right? That's the question that you have to ask. One of these number 1 seeds are going to lose. I don't think all 4 number 1 seeds are going to make it to the Final Four. I just don't see that happening, because I believe the teams that I chose to make it to the Elite Eight can pose problems for these number 1 seeds. And I'm talking about big problems. Big time guard play will matter in the Elite Eight. But are you guys ready to go ahead and jump into the Final Four to see who I have going into the Final Four? Let's go ahead and go into the Final Four. I am going to go ahead and make sure I screen share for you guys. Bear with me. All right. And here we go. Final Four. Villanova versus Duke. Let's break this down. 27-8, 31-3. RPI, Villanova's number 1. Opponent's point per game, Duke is giving up a little bit more, but Villy is playing better defense. Duke is, but against top 25 opponents, Villanova's only played 5 versus Duke's 12, and Duke is 8-4. Their conference, they're 11-7, which is the toughest conference in basketball right now, is the ACC, and they're averaging over 80 points with riding on the conference championship game, making your way all the way to the Elite Eight. You're primed and ready to hopefully have a matchup, a championship matchup against North Carolina, if it can happen. I have Duke upsetting Villanova in the Elite Eight, advancing to the Final Four. Coach K making it happen again. Right? Kansas versus Oregon. I got Kansas advancing against Oregon. Let's break it down. Kansas, 28-4. Conference, they're both 16-2. BPI, 10-13. Versus top 25 opponents, Kansas shows up in big games and they are 6-2. Even though they don't play that good of defense, but offensively they can score the basketball. They score a little bit better than Oregon, but at the same time, I have Kansas advancing because they know how to play on a big stage. Kansas shows up on big stage, right? So in the Final Four, so far my two teams, Duke and Kansas, are in there. And we're finna see who are going to be the next two teams to join them. You have Gonzaga versus Arizona, a 1-2, and you have North Carolina versus UCLA, a 1-3. This is big. This is really big. We're going to start with Gonzaga versus Arizona, right? Teams down. Arizona right now, to me, their RPI rank, they're stronger. Gonzaga play better defense, but Gonzaga is not in a really tough conference. I give Arizona the edge. Against top 25 opponents, though, Gonzaga has showed up and they are undefeated. If you top 25, they're eating you alive, right? That's how they have it right now. And they know how to score the basketball. But I believe Arizona possesses something that Gonzaga does not have. And what that is Arizona done played in some tough games. But I believe that Arizona plays with another chip on their shoulder because they're in that same division as that Lonzo Ball guy, bringing his name up again. They're in that same division as that Lonzo Ball guy. And what better way to put yourself in a position if UCLA was to advance and beat North Carolina? We're just saying if they were to advance. Would it be sweet to see Arizona knock off UCLA? Or if we got an Arizona UCLA national championship game, that means Lonzo Ball will be playing for national championship in where he will be playing against a team who won not the ACC, the Pac-12 championship, which he could not do in Arizona. I mean, I could sell it to you guys if you want it that way, but guess what? I'm not in the selling business. I'm in the keeping it real business, and I'm just going to keep it real, and I'm going to have Gonzaga advancing against Arizona heading into the Final Four. Now, this North Carolina UCLA matchup is one for the ages. I believe this will be a really good matchup. And when you look at this points per game, you got UCLA averaging 90 points per game versus North Carolina's 84 points per game. And in their conference, North Carolina's in a tougher conference than UCLA, but UCLA has a better winning percentage in their conference. North Carolina could have been that team if they would have won their conference, but they didn't. And you lose to Duke twice in the same year. Do I believe UCLA can upset North Carolina? Absolutely. I believe it can happen. I believe it's going to happen another year from now, not this year. I believe North Carolina has the better team, the better all-around team than UCLA. I believe UCLA runs stop here against North Carolina. And I have North Carolina advancing to the Final Four, where you have Kansas as the number 1 seed, North Carolina as the number 1 seed, Gonzaga as the number 1 seed, and you have Duke as the number 2 seed, who knocked off the overall number 1 in Villanova to make it to the Final Four. So my Final Four is set: Duke, Gonzaga, Kansas, North Carolina. Who am I going to choose to play in the national championship game? Right? Let's talk a little bit about the Duke versus Gonzaga first, right? Duke versus Gonzaga. Okay, Gonzaga, we saw they put up points. We see Duke answer when their backs are against the wall. Grayson Allen coming off the bench makes Duke a little bit better. Duke is more proven to me than Gonzaga. And the reason why I say Duke is better is because Duke right now, Duke isn't afraid of anybody. Gonzaga can be number 1. But if Duke knocks off Villanova, you don't think Duke is going to be on a tremendous high going up against Gonzaga? I mean, I have Duke winning that game. I do. I have Duke winning that game. Then you got this Kansas versus North Carolina, right? I believe North Carolina could upset Kansas. They could do it. Do I think it's going to happen? No. It's going to be Duke and Kansas for the national championship. And I have Duke winning it all, right? You heard it. I have Duke winning it all. Well, they say, well, why you won't fill it in? Like, show us that you're filling that in. Okay, that's no problem. I will show you. I'll show it to you. Duke, Kansas. You see it right here. My pick is Duke. I have Duke winning against Kansas 77-73. There you go. You have it, man. You guys seen it for yourselves.